That's a great Sandler sales technique for those of
That's
you
how
who've
we
never
know that.
taken Sandler sales training. This, people want to help folks that look like they need help.
This is something we completely obviously agree with and preach about, but just, having your niche and knowing who you're a hero to.
And she accepted Jesus Christ as she stood here in front of my store. Wow. I mean, that's the bullseye.
Hello, and welcome to the Liberty Spenders podcast. We are your hosts, Kurt and Kristen Luthart, co-founders of the Prosper Group, an agency that's helped raise over $500 million and help elect over 100 members of Congress, 15 governors, 15 U.S. senators, and 1 president. And now, in addition to helping political candidates get elected, we're helping your business get elected by answering this question. What if you could exponentially grow your audience by tapping into a lucrative and engaged audience we call Liberty Spenders? Now, Liberty Spenders make up roughly 40% of the country. We've identified them, 76.5 million of them, and they're looking to buy from businesses and brands that align with your values. So if you want to learn more about that, you can get access to our new best-selling book at libertyspenders.com/free.
Our guest today is Vic Kennett, who's the founder of Caruso. And he has built more than just a business. He's built a movement. Vic is the founder and CEO of Caruso, which is the world's largest Christian apparel company, one of the world's largest Christian apparel companies, soon to be the world's largest. For over 3 decades, they've been at the forefront of faith-based entrepreneurship, equipping millions to share the gospel in everyday life through bold, conversation-starting t-shirts, hats, drinkware, and more. And if you're looking at the video, you're seeing some of them right behind his shoulder. Vince launched Caruso back in 1987 from a small garage in Arkansas, which is where every good business starts, is in the garage, with a simple yet powerful mission to proclaim the good news to the world through products about Jesus. And since then, the brand has grown into a household name amongst Christian retailers and believers alike, known for high-quality merchandise with messages that matter. His leadership combines a deep commitment to faith, country, and freedom, values that resonate strongly with our Liberty Spenders community for sure. Whether you're passionate about principled business, inspired by the impact of Christian values in the marketplace, or curious how purpose-driven companies can thrive in today's world, having Vic on the podcast and hearing his perspective is going to be unique and powerful. So we're excited to have you here, Vic. Welcome to Liberty Spenders Show.
Thank
Welcome.
you. Thank you so much. Thanks for the invitation. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I was excited about this, especially because, I have checked you guys out. I've seen your apparel around. I'm sure I've owned and own some of it. And it's amazing how you went from this small town garage starting company to where you are now. And there was a lot happening at the same time. You started a company with just $1,000 in a spare room. How did that? I love origin stories. Tell us about that. It just sounds
That's a leap of faith, though.
It really was. It really was. And so I was a young man, 1987. How old was I? I don't know. I can't do the math right now, but 20, anyway, in my 20s. And I was doing construction. I was doing carpentry. I remember we were doing a kind of particularly grimy public restroom remodeling job. I was seeking God. I was fairly newly I'd been a believer since I was 15, but in my early 20s, I really okay, I need to get serious about this. That was what I heard from the Lord was like, it's time to get serious about it. And so I was in that time and doing this job, and I'm like, God, I'm not sure this is what you want me to do with my life. And so I was just seeking him, and whining to him a little bit. And I remember literally on my hands and knees, not praying, scraping nasty public restroom tile. And I look up, and it was in a little tourist town in Northwest Arkansas called Eureka Springs, and a wonderful little town, kind of built up in the Victorian era. And I look up and I see someone wearing a shirt. It said something about Jesus. And I had age, 15 through college, managed a t-shirt shop downtown in Eureka Springs, Arkansas. So I had a little bit of t-shirt perspective, but I saw that shirt and I said, that's what I'm going to do. I mean, it was just like, it was not an audible voice, but it was almost like a firecracker went off in my head. And it was like, that's it.
That's amazing. That's not usually,
No,
to have that clarity is nice,
Yeah.
I suppose.
So
Yeah.
you had
just struck you.
yeah, and you had this inspiration, and you just grabbed $1,000 and said, "Let's do this."
that's right. That's right. Well, I didn't grab it. I had to talk my brother into lending it to me. Uh,
There we
Yeah.
go. There we go.
So, what was that first couple of years like? I myself, with my own entrepreneurial journey, there are days I look back on that with fondness. Although at the time, I probably didn't feel like I was going to look back at
Yeah.
that with such fondness
It
today.
was exciting. I'm always drawn to a challenge, always have been, but it was exciting. It was unknown. It was frightening a bit to my wife, like, what are you sure about this? And it was part-time. I didn't, I kept swinging the hammer. I did this on lunch and weekends and here and there. And it started extremely meagerly and part of that $1,000 loan was a sixth of a page, which is about, in Campus Life magazine, which was about this big, you know 2 inches by maybe 4 inches, black and white, no internet, of course. And so what I expected these people to do who got Campus Life magazine, was to pick one of these three designs and, in the smallest writing possible, fill out your name, put the X on the size large, and maybe 6 weeks later, you got your shirt. So it would save these orders, build them up, go to a local screen printer. Hey, could you print me 2 dozen of these? So it was that kind of thing. So it was fun and exciting and scary all
Mhm.
at once.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Was there an initial success, maybe a design that really took off, that really you feel like, took you from, a hobby business to something that was growing?
It wasn't, I couldn't put my finger on like it was a design that did that. It was the move going from direct to consumer, which now, of course, is very scalable. But in that day, it's like, how many magazine ads could I afford? Well, the answer was one more, and then I'm done. So one day I said, maybe I could go to some Christian book and gift stores, take a few of my samples, take my wife's waitress notepad, and try and write an order. So I took off work one day, got in the car, and there was a handful of Christian book and gift stores within a 80-mile radius, and I said, "Hey, here I am. I don't know anything, and I've got a few T-shirts. Do you want some?" And yeah, yeah, give me a few dozen, this and that, and then I went to the Great Passion Play. Are you familiar with the Great Passion Play in Eureka Springs, Arkansas? It's a phenomenal production. It's an outdoor drama and just fantastic. And I had been a cast member for 10 years, a lot of my life. I went to their gift shop and I said, "Hey, here I am. I don't know anything. And I got a few t shirts. Do you want some?" And they said, "Yes, absolutely." Got an order for like 12 dozen. And I was off to the races. And then I asked them, I didn't know anything. Didn't know anything. And I said, "Do you have sales people that call on you that carry stuff?" Yeah, we have that. They're called manufacturers representatives. So I said, "Yeah, can connect me." So I connected with someone, and they had like Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, and so it was still part time. I was still swinging the hammer and doing this through the reps, but the orders were coming in. And then I picked up a nationwide group and they took me on, and it's like, all right, I hung up the hammer and picked up the squeegee full time.
I love that. I mean, there's something that's so beautiful about your approach and how you're describing it. Whereas so many people, when they're starting, especially when you're young, you're trying to prove yourself, it's almost counterintuitive, but you perhaps might want to come in with a like overconfident posture, right? Like, I'm new and young and doing this cool thing, and look at these amazing shirts I have. And instead of, hey, here I am, I don't know anything. Would you maybe want some of these? I mean, there's that's a that's a great lesson for anybody in the humility of just, knowing where you're at. And by the way, people want to help you.
Right.
They want to help you. I mean, I could envision that of being like, oh, like, here's how this works. And you're just like eating it up, or soaking it up like a sponge and then taking action on it. So that's just, I'm sorry, I just love that.
Oh, thank you.
Origin story.
Absolutely.
Hey, I don't know anything. Would you maybe want some of these? I think that's great.
Well, that's a great Sandler sales technique for those of you who've
we also
never
know that. Yeah.
taken Sandler sales training. They say, people want to help folks that look like they need help, right? If you come in too cocky, they don't want to help.
Hey, I'm a
together.
natural. I'm a natural target for that approach.
Oh, when we first started doing that, I remember saying to Kurt, well, this won't be a stretch. I mean, you don't even have to they'd say, oh, mess up your wardrobe. It's like, nope, he can just go right as he is. We're good.
But, that's, you're describing, probably some fits and starts here. You get a big order and then maybe not one for a while, or a magazine hits, the magazine doesn't. Was there a time in those early days when you doubted and said, you know what, maybe I just happened to see a guy in a t-shirt and I wasn't really supposed to do this?
Absolutely. I have a wonderful story I reflect back on sometimes. And it was in those very early days. And I would go to, in Eureka Springs, this old historic post office, P.O. Box 13. And okay, I'm going to ignore this number. There's no bad signs here. And it didn't matter. It was P.O. Box 13. And I would go check that mailbox on my lunch if I was doing a remodel job in town, and would go get that. And I had these orders, but it wasn't enough to, on the third, fourth go round, to meet the minimum order for even this small mom and pop garage screen printer. And I'd saved these, and they're getting old. It's not like today where if you don't get your order by day after tomorrow, you're upset and you're like, cancel it, I'm going to go somewhere else. It could take a few weeks, and people, I'm sure, got their shirt and they go, oh yeah, that's right, I forgot I ordered that. But I had them and they were building up and they were getting old. And I was talking to my sister, who was also a believer, and I said, sis, I think I just got to send these back. I just, I don't have enough. And she said, I might get a little emotional here because she's no longer with us, and she was quite an inspiration to me. But she said, just hang on, just see what God will do. So it was her faith, not mine, really, that carried me through that.
Well, and so many of us have those people in our lives. We can all share a story like that where maybe we're starting to doubt ourselves, or even doubt, if we felt like there was a calling. Was it really God's calling, or was it just my own emotion or ego? Or, and it's amazing. I've heard sermons about this where, so many of us, we have those moments, and it's amazing how we could have been so confident that we knew what we were supposed to do. But then when it doesn't quite go great or not as fast, then we think, well, I'm not really sure. Maybe he wasn't really telling me to do this. And really, we just need to stay the course and give him time to do his work. But what a tremendous blessing it sounds like your sister was in your life.
We did a festival in the early days. It's like we did a Cornerstone Festival. It was up north of Chicago. I don't know if you remember those guys. And they had this, I forget the name of their magazine, but they were real, like, on the edge of when really alternative Christian rock was coming out, and they're like all these crazy kind of bands compared to like the Steve Greens and the Harvest and some of those guys. going way back.
Oh, and Larnell Harris. Oh,
all
my
that.
soul, Larnell Harris.
So we slept in a 2-man tent. You know, it was a camping kind of event, and anyway. So my sister was there at the beginning with me. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. And I thought it was interesting too, as you've shared a little bit or in the past about how you came to faith, and I thought it was kind of interesting that I don't know where I got it, but you referenced yourself as a 5th grade atheist, which when I was in 5th grade, I wasn't thinking that
Right.
seriously about, I mean, I was going to church and I believed in Jesus, but I was still too young probably to have really critically thought about, whether or not there was a God or yet. I hadn't really questioned, right? And so to be in the 5th grade and already sort of thinking about God, that seems like a story, and then found faith as a teen after you bought a book at a yard sale. How did that evolve?
Yeah, I look back on it with the same kind of, well, that's kind of not, that's not normal. And I look back on it with the same thoughts of like, what a, anyway. So I remember it was the 5th grade, but you know what, guys, the voices in the world are they're they're united often, and they're everywhere. And so even at that age, what were my inputs? My inputs were maybe National Geographic magazine, evolution is a fact, science has proven it, and all that kind of stuff. So if that and some of these other sources of scientists were saying certain things, it's like, yeah, well, that's a fact. So therefore, this Bible must be a fable. And I was having those thoughts. And so I decided that's my position. That's I don't believe this. So that's how it was I remember clearly I drew that line in the dirt in the 5th grade. And fast forward a few years, um, one of the things I remember, and the Bible talks about, I forget the scripture reference, but it says, um, "Oh death, where is your sting?" So there's a sting to death and the thought of death, and it was the thought of death and what, okay, dead, done, gone, exists no more, forgotten. That was that was concerning to me. And then I didn't think, oh my God, I'm going to die any day now. But when you're that age, you think your parents are ancient and they could go at any minute. And so I'm thinking, my parents, and so I'm having these thoughts. And we lived out, in a rural area, and I'm 15 and I'm into skateboarding and weightlifting and whatever. And whatever I'm doing, I'm not doing it with my mom. But my mom said, "Hey, I'm gonna go to a yard sale. Do you want to go?" Okay. So I went. And then the other thing that's just really out of character for me was there's a table full of books. I could care less. I mean, I can read, and I read a lot, but I was not like, oh, I'm gonna get a book. But I saw on this table of dozens of paperbacks. Al Lindsay,
Mhm.
Okay, let me see that. Yeah. Okay.
millions of copies sold. This was in the early 70s. And I mean, a lot of people came to faith through Hal Lindsey's book, The Late Great Planet Earth. So I read that, and there a few things that stood out to me that took me from a place of being an atheist because of these facts over here to, okay, it was presenting, one, that there are hundreds of prophecies in the Old Testament concerning Jesus that were fulfilled in the first coming of Jesus. And okay, the Bible can say that, but is the Bible, can you trust it? That was the second part. And it was, if we're going to believe in certain other old historical documents that we take as fact, the writings of Josephus and things like that, that there were manuscripts that lined up with each other. And so that then the Bible can be trusted. So if the Bible can be trusted and it says impossible that those things happened by chance. Therefore, there must be a God. And if there is one, what does his word say? And I should pay attention.
Mm-hmm. It's just powerful.
Yeah. Well, and I remember reading Josh McDowell when I was in high school.
That was the second book I picked up that really put that anchor in there. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that giant, thick evidence that demands a verdict, right? That looked like a college textbook you'd never want to read. But what's so powerful on these basic arguments about, the documents and how we can trust the Bible and how do we look at issues like evolution? How are they related? Is it really a threat? The idea that, does that theory really solve the problem of origins? Which it doesn't. At best, it explains, even if you take it at face value, how human beings evolved. It doesn't tell you how we got here, right? It doesn't tell you how the world started. And so I loved that. And I ate that stuff up when I was in high school. I just found it interesting in fifth grade. I mean, in fifth grade, I was still, I'm still reading books about dogs, right?
Well, I'm picking up, right? You mentioned National Geographic. It's like, okay, so you were reading a lot, either interested in the outdoors or in science or, Earth. And so I think that makes sense. If that's what your exposure was, I can see that.
Yeah.
I was not one of those people. That was not my interest at that age. So therefore, but I can see that. And I can also see why this book, the book you just mentioned, would have also been appealing because it's along those exact same lines of where you had been questioning. Mm-hmm. And so to get those answers, is a powerful thing.
Yeah. Now, Caruso as a business name, it's because it means to preach, right? That's how you got there. It means to preach in Greek.
That's right. That's right.
So tell me about the selection of this, because that's obviously very intentional.
Yes. So at that time, I was going to a wonderful church that was, taught right out of the Bible, and our pastor was a big, Greek word. What's this word really mean? What's the word in the Greek or in the Hebrew? And taught me how to go to a Strong's Concordance and look up a word and go, oh, that's the Greek word this, and literally according to this Greek or Hebrew scholar, it means that. The word love in the Bible, I think there's 7 different meanings, and I think this may be why Jesus came during the time that the Greek language was so prolific, because it is so expressive. We have one word for love. The Greeks had 7, and agape and phileo, and okay, what kind of love are we talking about? So it was sitting under this kind of teaching that I thought, all right, I want something that sounds cool. And at the time I thought, maybe it's cool that you don't know what it is, but it sounds cool. And so this was at the time there was a brand called Massimo apparel. And they've come back, and some of these brands who launch big and then they kind of go away and they show up at Walmart or Kmart, later. It was one of those. I think it became a Target brand name. Anyway, so Massimo, that's kind of cool. So I started looking up different words. Just what's the word, this and that, and I looked up the word preach. So in Mark chapter 16, verse 15, Jesus says, go into all the world and Caruso the good news. So the Greek word preach everywhere in the New Testament is, that word preach is the Greek word Caruso. And I thought, there it is.
Well, that certainly imbues into the purpose of the business. You're trying to have impact. You're wanting to use apparel as a way to start faith conversations. You've been doing it long enough. Now, I'd love to hear, because I bet you have them, some stories of how your apparel has sparked some conversations, been used by God to impact people.
So many, and it's a real blessing when one of our customers will connect with us and tell us their story. Um, I've got a personal one. Years ago, I was in Las Vegas for a trade show, and I'm walking through the casino and area on my way to the gym, and I'm wearing a shirt that it's not in publication right now, but we love a good head turner. We love a good pun. And this shirt was a bright red shirt, bold white lettering. It said heavy drinker on it. And I forget the verse reference, but the scripture is, you know, whoever drinks of the water I give him will never thirst again. You turn it, it's like, what? So I'm walking through the casino, and I see this guy. We are crossing paths, and you can tell he had been up, like he was still up, and this was like, I don't know, 7 a.m. And he pointed at my shirt. He said, "Right on. Hey, I love that." And I said, I turned around and said, "Read the back." And he said, "I guess that's cool too." You know, so it stopped him. And we had a little interaction. And I didn't crack open a Bible. It was on my back. Um, but I remember this one story so impactful. And it's in our book, Change Your Shirt, Change the World. Do you mind if I read this testimonial?
Oh,
No,
I love it.
go for
All right,
it.
go for it.
All right. I'm going to put on the cheaters.
Yeah.
Okay. So this story came to us from one of our retailers, and they had a mall. They had a store in a mall, and he said, "I wanted you to see what kind of an impact we are having with your products. A teenage girl and her mother were walking past my store in the mall. The young lady wanted to stop and look at the Caruso shirts I have on display. Her mother did not want to stop and look. I could gather by the comments I overheard that it was because of their Christian content. I asked the mom to read the back of the Love Built a Bridge shirt."
Mhm.
And I've got that here. I'm going to hold it up for those who are partaking via video. So it was this shirt. And the shirt says, "Son, I need you to build a bridge. Here are all the tools you will need. See you soon. Love, Dad." So that's the shirt she saw in the window. And he said he did that in an attempt to slow the mom down so that her daughter could take a look at the store. He's being a good shopkeeper. And he says, as she read it, her face clouded and she started to cry. I asked her if I could pray with her. She said yes, and she accepted Jesus Christ as she stood here in front of my store. Wow. I mean, that's the bullseye. That's the bullseye of what we hope our shirts can help the Lord do. And it says, when she regained her composure a bit, she related to me that in the past year her husband had walked out on the family, and her tears really began to flow again as she described finding her 17-year-old daughter dead in her room just 4 months ago. She had approached the brink of suicide often in the past months, and felt that her 13-year-old daughter was the only reason she had to continue living. Mother and daughter went on their way through the mall. The exuberance that young girl showed at her mom's transformation was the most precious gift I'll receive this Christmas. Before they left the mall that day, they came back and brought me a cookie from the food court, and many, many thanks for being there with that shirt and my prayer. Keep up the good work. And that's from our book, Change Your Shirt, Change the World.
Well, we'll have to link to that book in the show notes. So note for Neil, because that's powerful. And when we can combine impact together with, making money, selling a shirt and creating impact. It's so powerful. And one of the greatest things, and I noticed also you guys have a history of Caruso getting involved in Christian nonprofits, et cetera. So was that some promise you made early on? I'm going to give a certain amount away as part of a tithe or something that you do periodically. How did that whole process of getting involved there
Yeah.
evolve?
Thank you. That's a great question. This goes back to my first pastor, Pastor Gary Hayhurst at Faith Christian Family Church in Eureka Springs, and he taught on giving. He didn't hold back. He talked about it and taught it, and I believe the Bible compels us to give, and I believe that we're blessed in order to be a blessing. So I was taught that and mentored in that early on, and in those days, I remember, I was making $4 an hour. I somehow convinced my employer at that time. This was after, I had the fitness center and went bankrupt, and so I'm out and like, how do I, scratch a living? I talked my employer somehow into withholding zero tax, no FICA, no federal, somehow, because I had losses in the fitness center. So my take home was my gross pay, which was $160. And I remembered I'm tithing $16 a week on that when, you can't afford it, but you can't afford not to do it because God says, given it shall be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over will men. I mean, that's, God does it through people, will give unto you. So I started that obedience and that discipline and that habit, and you know we've our ability to give has grown a lot since then, and we try to do what the Bible says: give to every worthwhile cause, and so yeah, we have quite a few that are near and dear to us.
Hey, business owners, did you know there's 76.5 million faith-based and conservative consumers that are looking to support brands that align with their values?
That's a $5 trillion opportunity. And if you're not tapping into it, you're leaving money on the table. Our new book, Liberty Spenders, is your ultimate guide to reaching this influential audience using conviction-driven marketing.
That's right. We break down real-world strategies that successful brands are using right now to connect with this audience authentically, build trust, and drive long-term business growth.
So if you're truly serious about standing out in today's crowded market, grab your copy today on Amazon or visit libertyspenders.com. And don't miss out on this revolutionary strategy called conviction-driven marketing. Well, it's so, it fits really well. I mean, you're preaching and funding Christian ministries, evangelistic projects, et cetera. And I know I still found some reference you've done. You've gone on some mission trips. Now, is that part of the company thing or more of a personal trip, or how did?
Yeah, it's a personal thing, and I love it and would love to do more of it. My role in the company is it's fairly all consuming and demanding, but once in a while I'll make it happen. One of my favorites was a trip to Uganda in Kampala, the capital, and one of our sales reps had retired, and he got connected with a church in Texas that did mission trips to Uganda every summer, and they did like a vacation Bible school every summer, and so we were donating shirts, 600 shirts, so that every camper would get a shirt. So they got a Caruso T-shirt, and he stayed out. We did this for years, and he said, "Vic, you've got to come sometime." So I made it happen. Went there. We fed 600 kids 3 meals a day, and we did vacation Bible school with them every day, and it was just so amazing. And it's true that the person being given to often gives back more than what you're giving, and I felt that way being with those kids, it was just phenomenal and loved it.
Yeah, it's an amazing turn, I think, when you start thinking, oh, look, like you said, look what I'm giving. And it's always better. I feel like, selfishly, I get so much joy and reward out of that. Um, again, and, you know, it also helps take the focus off ourselves when we're serving other people and we're thinking about other people. I mean, we are just by nature very selfish individuals caring about our own needs. And it's amazing the increase in your joy and fulfillment when you shift that. You shift that perspective and that mindset. And I love that because you would have been supporting that organization and then, hey, you need to come see this for yourself.
Right.
You got to come.
That was the payback. The payback was seeing these kids and the smiles and in other situations that I've been in with, trips with Compassion International, and we did this big red wristband campaign, and I think our donations on that are up to now like close to $400,000. But back in the heyday of that campaign, you'd go visit people's homes and yeah, dirt floor, yeah, no glass in the windows, yeah, meager possessions, but they're happy. They're happy, and and to see that, and it certainly changes your perspective. But then the longer you're away from it, we live in the affluence that we live in the West in general, but we need to go back. We need to be reminded often because, to your point, Kristen, we're human and we forget.
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the business for a moment, although it's been generally our topic, but I'd found some reference to you having a debt-free philosophy for the business. So, Robert Kiyosaki, is banging on the door saying, have debt, debt, debt. That's a very specific kind of business decision. What led you to that kind of approach to running your company?
Well, a couple things, I think. I was raised by a father who went through the Great Depression. So my dad was quite a bit older than most people, kids' dads. He was 54 when I was born in 1910. At 19 years old, he dropped out of Northwestern, and he and a frat brother took a canoe from Chicago to New Orleans. So, and he wrote an autobiography, and so he's got these incredible stories. But he, like everyone of that generation, was shaped by the Great Depression. You don't leave light switches on. You don't throw away that last swallow of milk. And oh, by the way, I didn't know ketchup was supposed to be refrigerated till I moved out of the house. So to me, ketchup was brown, not. But anyway, you waste nothing. You waste nothing. So I was brought up very conservatively, fiscally, financially. My mom might say my dad was, sometimes, and she always spoke very respectfully, but once in a while, he might be considered penny wise and pound foolish. He'd spend $7 on epoxy and wire to fix a $2 axe handle. But anyway, it wasn't Walmart like, oh, that's not quite working, throw it away, go buy another one. No, you fix stuff and you make it work. So it was that. But then there was also some of your audience will be old enough to remember a Christian financial counselor named Larry Burkett. And so I consumed Christian radio, was a big mentor in my Christian walk, and always listening to Christian radio programming. And Larry Burkett was the Dave Ramsey of his day. And he was very big on no debt. And the Bible says, "Oh, no man anything but to love him." So he took that very literally, and I understand the Robert Kawasaki model, and I
Yeah.
have different opinions now on what's really debt and what is borrowing. What's borrowing and what is really debt. So I'm not
Mhm.
opposed to borrowing. but
Mhm.
you don't max out a bunch of credit cards. And if you can't afford that car and that car payment, you just don't get it. Used is fine. And you know what?
Yep.
100,000 miles, so what? Make it last. Just
Mhm.
because everyone's got the new iPhone so that's the mindset of a Larry Burkett that I
Right.
was mentored in. And that's what I adopted. As a matter of fact, when I borrowed that $1,000, I was already very conservative, and I didn't really consider
Right.
owing my brother. Like, do I really owe him? I was like, oh, we could probably work this out.
This is
Yeah,
payback.
yeah,
He
yeah.
owes me this from all the
All those
teasing
all
and
those
who
bruises
knows
on
what.
my shoulder. He owes me $1,000 at least for damages. So, but I was like, hey, if this doesn't work, like this is where I'm drawing the line. If this isn't, because I went
Mhm.
bankrupt in the fitness center that I owned,
Right.
lost, what was left of my college savings. And, I started working when I was 12, and my dad was an investment
Right.
guy. He's like, okay, you get this
Mhm.
much, the rest of it's going over here. And so that
Yeah.
grew. Um, anyway, so that was the deal. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember Larry Burkett. I have a copy of The Coming Economic Earthquake upstairs,
Yep.
in which he predicts that the American economy will destroy when we hit $1 trillion in debt. Little did he
Yeah.
know
We would find a
the-
way to.
we'd be like 12 or 15 trillion or whatever the
Hey,
number is today, and acting like it's not even a
with
big
all these
deal.
tariffs,
have
maybe
the
we should
same-
dust that book off.
We're such nerds. I have the same book.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I remember him and read a lot of his stuff too. But I think it's great, and in the middle of all of that, to have built something, you're about to sell your 50
Yeah.
millionth. Is
Yeah,
that
that's a word.
I don't know if that's the right word. 50
Yeah.
millionth shirt this year in
I think
2025.
we've hit it.
Let's
I
just take a
think we've
minute.
hit it. So now's when the confetti goes off. Because I think
Yeah.
Like, we take a minute. That is
Yeah.
like, yes. Well done.
Yeah.
That's
Amen.
incredible.
Glory to God
Amen.
for that. I mean, that's mind blowing. That how many years have you been in business?
We're 38 years. Yeah.
38 years. So that's more than 1 million shirts a year on
Yeah.
average.
And of
right?
course it's
Uh,
the curve is kind of like
Yeah.
like
Right,
that. And
right.
so these
Yeah.
days it's close to 4 million a year or so.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really amazing milestone to be passing. And I know we talked a little bit about some of the things that helped you as you got into the retailers and such, but are there some decisions you made along the way as a business owner that you feel like really helped, or maybe God guided you to make a smart decision to that you think has put you in a position to be able to do 4 million t-shirts a year?
I've always stood on kind of the Jim Collins good to great principle. I think he called it the hedgehog principle. What are you basically what can you be best at? What do you stand for? And so we could make money doing a lot of other kinds of topics. And I'm not saying any of that is bad or wrong, but in our business, I made that decision. We're staying in this lane. This is why I'm on this planet. This is what matters. And I think that focus is a big part of the blessing from God, number one, and the reason for success. I think focus breeds success in just about any area.
Yeah, you're not spread too thin. And in business, and of course this is something we completely obviously agree with and preach about, but just, having your niche and knowing who you're a hero to. And that's true in any business that you are, right? Who's your ideal customer and who do you want to be a hero for and who are you serving, and get to know them and what do they want. And so by having this focus, like you said, I mean, obviously you're being obedient to what you think God's called you to do with your business, but
Amen. It comes
that's
right
also good
right back
business.
to right back to what you guys do in the
Yeah.
Liberty Spender.
And now you're in 100 countries, truck stops, the whole deal. I think that's really interesting. What was how did the international expansion go? Was it through a distributor? Did you have to, you travel internationally to make your pitches? How did that grow?
Yeah. So I love our international customers and to be, you know, going into all the world, just to go into all the world. And although we're primarily sold domestically, we've been blessed to have, retailer customers and consumers all over the world. And that started through the Christian book and gift store industry. And folks would come from all over the world and go to the big Christian Booksellers Association show, and that's where we met a lot of these folks. Some of them are distributors, where it's that one buying relationship, but they're placing it into many countries. And we're in Australia, we're in New Zealand, we're in Singapore, Malaysia, Beirut, Lebanon. I mean, some of these are just little bitty, like tiny little shops, but we're there, and we're proclaiming the good news.
It's amazing.
So are you making these things? Do you have a Spanish language and,
No, it's all still
French?
English.
What's it?
We've done some Spanish language shirts, but it's all just English. And
Yeah, that's fascinating.
amazing. Well, I was thinking about this myself, because of how long you've been at this, nearly 40 years, and a lot's changed in fashion and how people buy, online sales. So how has Caruso been able to stay on top of that, keep up with the trends and buying behaviors so that you can continue to be successful?
we have an amazing team, and always looking at the trends, and our focus hasn't changed. But to your point, fashion changes. What
Hmm.
messaging resonates today versus some other messaging, and what's some things that are in the moment. So just an amazing team of designers, marketers, salespeople who are looking for these trends. And it's just what we do. We show up, and that's our job, and we think about it all the time.
Well, it's all about the people, isn't it? Any business, it's all about the people and having the right people and knowing your business and knowing your customer. So, great answer. Who knew? I didn't know what if you'd have some special tool. Hey, we use this thing, but that's a great sum up.
Yeah. Well, now as we come to an end, it's time to enter our lightning round. All right. The lightning round. Here we go. We have 3 questions, 90 seconds each. There's no real pressure because there's no buzzer. Maybe that's coming. But 90 seconds on first of all, what legacy are you looking to leave behind from Caruso and maybe just in general?
That we made a difference, that we were obedient, that I followed that call, that firecracker moment that I told you about early in our conversation, that I stood true to that, and we made a difference primarily through the messaging and the scripture we put on t-shirts. We saw a study years ago, the average shirt will be read as many as 3,000 times. We have preached literally billions of messages through these shirts. But not only that, but then also the giving we've been able to do. So the legacy is just serving the Lord with boldness and obedience.
90 seconds, sort of complete pivot perhaps, but 90 seconds on any topic that's not on topic. So maybe it's a hobby that you're interested in, good book you read recently, a sports team you're a super fan of. What's something that's captured your attention lately?
I got 2 of them. Their names are Ruby and Rowan, and they're my granddaughters. And so, it's all about then, now, and just this amazing new chapter in our lives. The sun is brighter, the leaves are greener, and there's more smiles per miles, and it's just a wonderful new chapter. And you know couldn't be more thankful and grateful to the Lord for this blessing. The children are a gift from God.
Yeah.
How old are they?
They're 2+ and almost 2. So
Okay.
Yeah.
they're only 6 months apart. My
Oh,
oldest son and my daughter, and they each, have a girl, and they hang out a lot together. And they, on the weekends we're in the town where they live, and one's 5 minutes this way and the other one's 5 minutes that way. And so it's just a real
that's
blessing.
great. You're
We get to see
close.
them every weekend, and pretty much every day on FaceTime. So uh, it's an awesome
Yeah.
new chapter that the Lord has given us.
Yeah.
That's fun. That's fun. Well, now I'm going to ask, what have you decided what you want them to call you?
Well,
Are
yeah.
you
Oh, yeah,
grandpa,
yeah. Yeah,
papa? Like, do you get to pick, or do your kids pick, or
I
how's this
think
going to
it
go?
works both ways. So I remember, my mom, who was grandmother to my eldest, of course, and she tried to teach him to say Grandma K, and then so that tried to be
Yeah.
simplified into Grandma KK. Well, he said Tay Tay, and that became her name, and that became her
Oh.
registered custom license plate in the state of Arkansas. And so that's how that
Right.
worked.
Right.
So far, I decided, hey, I want to be called Poppy. So it's Poppy.
Okay.
The older one, she's got it, verbally very sharp.
That's easy to say. Yeah.
Poppy. The younger one, not quite there yet. So she's kind of saying Papa. So I don't know. Maybe I'm Papa, maybe I'm Poppy. I don't care. Just invite me over.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we ended up with an interesting situation where it's worked out really well for us though, because there's a grandma frog and grandpa toad, because she likes to make frog noises. And so that's how they know them, Frog and
Yeah.
Toad.
This is my mother.
And then Grandma Levon from Ohio, or Grandma from Ohio. That's worked out really well.
I've never heard Frog and Toad. That's a new one, and that's pretty special.
Yeah.
Well, no, and they that's why I asked, because it was not our children's choice. They were heavily encouraged. And so I just love how it goes, because some people care very much, and there's usually a story where when they do, and then ultimately the kids decide, they decide what they're going to call you, and it's like, well, that's what's happening.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just felt
Yeah.
ask.
Well, let's end 90 seconds. This is gratuitous promotion for Caruso. Give us 90 seconds. Who should be buying t-shirts from you? Where do they go to get them? What's the latest and greatest?
Let's start with why. Jesus said, go into all the world and preach the gospel. Caruso, the good news. You can do that by making that decision in the morning. What am I going to put on today? And it can help start a conversation. We call it t-shirt evangelism. Some people call it just, hey, be obedient to the Lord. So if you can do something as simple as change your shirt, you can change the world. We're found online. We're at Kerusso.com, Kerusso.com. We have several brands. Ladies brands, Cherish Girl, Grace and Truth. Got an awesome new brand. It's patriotic. It's Christian. The motto is hold fast to faith, family, and freedom. There's something for everybody. Kids, drinkware, yada, yada, yada. We have brands at major retailers and thousands of mom and pops across the country.
Yeah. Well, I am so happy to have you on. You've built something really cool. I really love your Hold Fast brand. That fits my ethos quite a bit, sort of a patriotic flavor. And I saw your flag going behind you.
see.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Those of you listening, he's grabbing some merch.
This one
Look at
this
that.
one
Oh,
says,
yeah.
those who trade liberty for safety deserve neither. Ben Franklin.
Yeah.
So we quote a lot of dead
Ooh.
presidents,
Yes.
great dead presidents.
That's fire.
Look, here's one.
Fire.
Here's one. This one says, the Constitution was written to protect us from people who think we don't need a Constitution for protection.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And then we've got just straight up scripture, but in that whole fast brand that's just rugged. You know, the Lord is my rock and my fortress in whom I take refuge. He is my shield and my stronghold. Psalm 18:2. Hold fast.
Love it.
I love it. You know, we love going to our county fair because half the audience at the county fair looks like the American flag threw up on their bodies. And, you know,
The
that is,
best sight.
yes,
ever.
it just makes, we were just at Dollywood a couple weekends ago for a family trip. And I thought, oh, this is great. They're playing church music over the speakers. Half the crowd's wearing an American flag. I thought this is awesome. This is my ethos. But we're so happy to have you on. For people who want to learn more, definitely, Vic already shared it, but you can go to Caruso.com. That's KERUSSO.com. You can hit him up there. You can buy a couple of t-shirts for sure. While you're at it, we'll put all those links in the show notes for those of you who want to learn more.
Yes. Also encourage you to do it. It's such a great company to support and such an easy way, like we said, to share the good news and to look good while you're doing it. So
Amen.
hope
Amen.
you check that out. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having
Yeah.
so much for having me on. I
Yes.
really enjoy our time together.
Well,
Yeah.
it's our treat. And for those of you listening, we thank you so much for your time. If you found value in this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe so that you don't miss anything in the future. And, you know, if you're really feeling special, leave us a nice review. It'll help other people find us. So thanks so much for tuning in. Until next time.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Liberty Spenders Podcast. If you're a business owner, we hope today's conversation gave you valuable insights on how to grow your business.
If you enjoyed the show, do us a favor. Hit like, subscribe, and leave a 5-star review. It really helps us reach more entrepreneurs and leaders like you who are ready to make an impact.
And write something flattering, because I read them all. Don't forget to grab your copy of Liberty Spenders too, available now on Amazon and at libertyspenders.com. It's packed with proven strategies to help you reach the 76.5 million consumers who are looking for brands that share their values.
We'll see you next time as we continue exploring how to grow your business with purpose and conviction.
Thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next episode and the one after that.